Welcome, everybody, to tonight's episode 129, Wire2Wire Sports Podcast. I am the NFL genius, Gene Walzak, and to my upper left corner, I got the man that runs the ones and twos, Kent State's own, Cleveland's own, College Cottrell.
What's going on, guys? Feeling good tonight.
I'm feeling madness. In the upper right corner, I got Scholastic Shally, Uncle Shally. After last night's pitching performance, we'll call him Dr. Shally. What's happening, Bill Shallcross? How you feeling?
Oh, man. No, it's a good night, man. Put the old W in the column and get off on the right foot. It's been a good day. Feeling happy after our team win last night.
Anytime you allow 10 or less runs in a softball game, the pitcher deserves credit. He's done something correct, especially week one. But by the way, I just thought about this, and I think this would be funny to start the show with. If I'm going to go to hell for one reason in this world, it's going to be like, all right, so like you guys know that I share this show out to like every single place I can share it to, right? Like there's like 73 shares a week. So like people will like request me to join their group or like share awareness for certain things. And I realized today that I share Wire2Wire Sports Podcast in every group. Like nobody like gets like I can't go down. I got to share it as fast as I can. I can't look where I'm sharing it. I'm sharing it to like Bill needs a new kidneys group. Like he needs a new kidney. And I'm like, oh, you can watch a podcast while you're trying to support that kidney. I feel like such a piece of trash afterwards. Like people invite me to their groups for like their business. And I'm sharing my podcast like all over their friggin' wall. But I don't care. So I'm sorry to anybody that gets this chat for no reason. But if we can find one listener, one download from your chat, I don't care. So
understood.
Let's start the show. Like I don't know. What this, maybe I'm wrong.
From softball to douchebag shares. We're off and running tonight.
Why is it got to be a douchebag share? Why can't it just be like a regular share?
I mean, you kind of said it without saying it. If you're going into Bill's kidney transplant page, and listen, I think we all applaud the daily enthusiasm that you have for the show and trying to get it to grow. I think there might be some tampered enthusiasm share sometimes.
It's an all or nothing thing, Bill. You can't you don't have time to hit you know what I mean? Like you don't have time to be like, oh, which one's this one? You just go down the list.
I get it.
Hear them as much as possible.
Listen, nobody's ever criticized go big or go home. So I mean, I guess that's what we're sticking with.
That's what we're sticking with. All right, we got a lot to get into this show. We have March Madness. It's our MLB preview episode. We have our third baseman's list. And then you got to be kidding me. And there's a lot that could be on You Got to Be Kidding Me this week. Like, a lot. There's a million things that happen this week. So if you don't have one, just private message me. I have 4. I know which one I'm using, but that's crazy. Share it. See, Tiny gets me. Share what you want. Share the BBL next. Thank you, Tiny. All right.
Are you going to explain to listeners what BBL is in case they don't know?
I don't know what BBL is.
Me either.
Okay. So like when you said that, I'm like, I don't know. I was hoping.
Tiny, what does that mean?
Maybe she meant BBW. You know, we're sharing to the BBW pages. But let's get started with March Madness. Not my Cinderella team, but my favorite team that was left in the tournament got lost. They lost a very close game.
That they did.
Kansas State. I felt like they kind of got robbed, but I felt like Brazilian booties. I'm with it.
That is right up Gene's alley.
Right up my alley. But Kansas State losing that game, I felt like there was some really, really poor officiating in the last 30 seconds of a couple games. I have no dog in this race. My Final Four has been eliminated. My champion's been eliminated.
Yep.
I have none of the Final Four.
Same.
But just from a fan's perspective, some really ticky-tack calls, including that foul. He pulled on his shirt a little bit. I don't know. Am I wrong? Am I like wild to think that?
You're not wild at all.
I said it as soon as it happened, and we were all talking about. You can't see his body move at all until after the ball's already out of his hands. I just don't know how you can make that call. At that part of the game, I don't get it. He missed the shot. You know, you let those kids go to overtime. You let them settle the game on the court. I thought it was a terrible call, and I would say for the most part, I don't think anybody's really complaining about the officiating at all throughout the tournament. And I feel like this weekend there was a couple instances and a couple big spots in a couple big games where it's reared its ugly head already. I thought that call was terrible. I don't think it affected his shot whatsoever. If you watch it from the camera, you know, from behind the backboard, he goes up, he lets the shot go. He's completely in control, and he doesn't move or even look out of control until well after the ball's gone. I thought it was a terrible call.
I agree. I agree with you. I thought it was an awful call. Now listen, I got to be honest with you. I've been rooting for Kansas State in this one. I really love the story behind them, and I'll tell you right now, Marquise Noel, that kid is special. Watch out for him, man. That guy had an amazing tournament. But what was your favorite matchup this past weekend that happened? I think that we can all agree that UConn looks like they're going to be the team to beat. They look just dominant. They look really good. However, they do have a little bit of a fasting issue. Now, they lucked out on the game time. The game time is go to be 9 minutes after they could break their fast. So they have food and water like set for them on the bench. But there's 3 UConn players that get significant minutes that are going to be fasting. So I just think that I don't know. So what was your favorite game? And we can all agree UConn looked the most dominant so far, right?
Yeah, I mean, definitely UConn looking dominant. I'm not going to steal anybody's thunder here, so I'll just go with one. The Michigan State Kansas State game that got Kansas State to the Elite Eight. That game was incredible. It went to overtime. That was quite literally, you had a battle of your stars. You know, Joey Hauser from Michigan State, he looked phenomenal in that first half. Second half, you know, Keontae Johnson had it going. Noel had it going. Like, I mean, that game going to overtime, that was giving every college basketball fan exactly what they could have asked for. The game was absolutely incredible, and what I will say about that game is it was nice because, you know, we talked about the officiating in the Elite Eight. In that game, the officials really got out of the way. You know, it was these teams are gonna make their plays, and you know, we're not gonna decide the fate of a game off of a whistle. So that game was my favorite to watch this past week.
How about you, Shally? What was your favorite?
I mean, honestly, my 2 favorite games were one of the games we already talked about with FAU Kansas State, and I thought San Diego State Creighton was a great game too. You know, that also had a little bit of shaky officiating at the end as well. I've read the explanation for the shot clock thing at the end, and I still don't understand it. But that was a great game. I mean, they punched back and forth. It looked like 2 or 3 times Creighton was going to go on. You know, we'll go on a little bit of spurt and finally pull away and put the game away. And those San Diego State kids just don't quit, man. They buckle down on defense and get stops, and they're efficient enough on offense to keep inching back into games. And it's a winning recipe right now. And it's one of those things where Creighton, we kind of talked about before, they're if they're the team that has to come down to get a stop, it's not the most reliable part of their game. But listen, overall, I think all the games have been great, minus the UConn Gonzaga game. I mean, they just boat raced them. But even the Texas game, or the Tennessee game, sorry, was a little bit, or no, the Texas game was a little bit disappointing with Miami because they were up so big, and I feel like they just kind of wilted under the pressure, and Miami just kept coming and coming and coming. I've loved this tournament. I said it Saturday watching games with some people. This is one of the best tournaments I can ever remember. There's been so many great games. Obviously, we all knew this was going to be chaos this year. I just love it. I mean, it's really hard not to say this is the best sporting event of the year, no matter what it is.
I love them all. I will say this, right? I don't think there was a snowball chance in hell that Gonzaga was beating UConn, but I felt like the officials completely just took Gonzaga out of the game too, with really ticky-tack calls on Drew Timme that felt very unnecessary in the first half. Just like, you got to know, like, you're destroying a team by making the one foul was like off a screen. They felt like he had his hand around him too long. I was very disappointed in Gonzaga's effort, but with that being said, I also don't feel like Drew Timme should only have been able to play 13 to 15 minutes in the game because he was in foul trouble the whole game. That destroyed them.
Absolutely.
And I still think UConn kills them. I said that beforehand. I think UConn is just built better than they are. But Miami, Texas was great. I got to watch the end of that. The score does not justify how close that game was. Kansas State, Michigan State was incredible. UCLA Gonzaga was incredible. Shout out to Tiny for calling that one, because UCLA was done, and then they came back. They took the lead, and then Julian Strawler from like the logo just bangs a three-pointer with taking no prisoners. It was a great game. It was a great weekend. It was fun to watch.
It's crazy to think about too, because obviously we saw what happened with Gonzaga and UConn, but UCLA, if UCLA wins that game, like, who knows what happens UCLA against UConn. And then even going just further than that, like Bill said it, you guys both mentioned it actually, Texas blowing the game against Miami. Like, Texas was looking like that dominant team. Texas had been dominating throughout the tournament so far. And, if Texas would have won that game, as great as UConn's looked, I would have been saying, hey, I think Texas is going to be a tough team to beat. But they just folded towards the end there. Miami got it rolling second half, being down double digits with like under 10 to go, and they had it going. So all the credit in the world to Miami.
I'm going to tell you something right now in these next couple games. Florida Atlantic versus San Diego State is going to be a defensive clinic. Take the under in that game. That game might be 53 to 51. San Diego State is playing such lights out defense, especially down the stretch. And Florida Atlantic does not give away any possessions whatsoever. Like, you score on Florida Atlantic, that's fine, but they're not gifting possessions. They don't turn the ball over much. And on top of them not turning the ball over much, they play very sound defense. I think that has the ability to be by far the best game this weekend. The two teams I was rooting for going into this weekend, I felt both kind of got hosed. One was Creighton and the other one was Kansas State. I felt like they're both really good teams, really good games, but it is what it is. I think that there's just ticky-tack fouls that are called. Bill, the one thing I did agree with was there's no way the 1.2 seconds didn't come off the clock after that ball was tipped. Like, what they did was they ran a stopwatch in real time from when the ball was tipped. Because even when you watch the replay, the ball's tipped, the ball goes about maybe 1.5 to 2 feet over the guy's head, and then the clock moves. You see the first tick on the clock, because you can't get perfection with a ball touching the hand for the clock to start. We're still a little behind in that technology.
Oh, no, I get that. I didn't think it was going to be 1.2, but you're going by the video, and again, they wouldn't be able to catch the ball. So, I mean, like, the highly, it's highly unlikely that the outcome of the game changes. They would have had to run some kind of like alley-oop tip play, and it would have had to go in.
Correct.
But there was still clearly 0.2 seconds left. And the wave it off.
But they said they're not going by the clock. They're going by – that's why they ran the stopwatch.
I get it, but the commentators, and then when we switch over to ESPN, they were talking about it too. you could call that on every play then. Like you said, like there is already an inherent human error type thing about who's ever running the clock. Like you said, you're never going to get that perfect.
Correct.
Like you can't be running. You can't go to replay and be like, oh, we think the guy started it too late and the game. That's the first time that's ever happened. Anything like that. That was crazy to me to look at all the confusion and everything else that was going on. You go by the replay and the clock operator in every other situation in every other game, and here it's because you think in slow mo that it started too late. Now you're going by a stopwatch, and who's to say there's human error with the guy doing the stopwatch in the replay? Like
that's also very true.
That whole thing that whole thing stunk to me. Like I said, I don't think it changed the outcome of the game. I think I don't think Creighton wins, but I still think they should have had the shot to run their play. That sucked to me. I didn't like the way that whole situation went down at the end.
I can't disagree with anything that you just said. But at the end of the day, I don't think the outcome of that game changes. I really don't. And I think that wasn't as egregious as the pull on the jersey that got called in the last second of the game. I can't take that.
Agreed.
All right, so let's get into these matchups. These two matchups. Final four is here. You have Florida Atlantic versus San Diego State. You got UConn versus the U. Where do you want to start? We can do it in order based off of what time they play at. 6:09. We got Florida Atlantic at San Diego State. The 9 versus the 5. I feel like I've been wrong, so no matter what way I go, you should just take the other side. I haven't picked the game right the entire friggin' bracket, but I like Florida Atlantic in this one. I'm sorry to the kids in Florida Atlantic. I probably just ruined your bracket, but I like Florida Atlantic in this one. I really do. I think San Diego State has a little bit too many offensive efficiencies, and I think Florida is a team that does not turn the ball over and that will not let San Diego State's very suffocating defense do them in.
I'm going to go against you on this one.
Probably good for you.
I mean, honestly, who the hell has really been picking them all right anyway, Gene? I mean, this tournament's been chaos. There's nobody. So I think these teams are very similar. They're almost mirrors of each other. Sure. Gene already talked about it earlier. It's going to be a low score, and it's going to be a very old school basketball game. You're going to see a lot of possessions go down to within 5 of the shot clock. You're going to see a lot of forced shots. Both these teams play elite defense. I think Florida Atlantic, revolves, is a little bit more of a jump shooting team than San Diego State. San Diego State has a little bit more variety to move the ball inside and score from inside in the lane down low with their bigs. That is why I'm giving them an advantage. I think San Diego State has the ability to stretch their defense outside and really, we've seen Florida Atlantic go through cold streaks already in this tournament. They've gotten away with a couple of them. I think San Diego State can guard them out there and really contest a lot of their threes. Gene's already mentioned, neither one of those teams turn the ball over a lot. It's going to be a very clean game. I like San Diego State, and like Gene said, it could be 51-49. This is going to be a very old school looking kind of basketball game. This isn't going to be an up and down game. It's going to be a lot of offensive sets, a lot of half court sets, a lot of, like I said, deep into the shot clock before you get looks and shots. If you're not a fan of old school basketball, this is the game you're going to want to watch out of the two. But I will go San Diego State in a close one, down in the wire, low scoring affair. A lot of great defense. Like I said, if you appreciate the fundamentals and the finer things of basketball, you'll love watching this game on Saturday.
Don't quote me on this. I just heard it on someone's TikTok video. But San Diego State has a chance to do in the first time since 2020 to play and win the entire tournament with not allowing any team to score more than 65 or more points. They've been in the 50s every game except one. They allowed 64 points, but it's insanity to me. They beat Alabama 71-64. They beat Furman 75-52. They beat Creighton 57-56. Creighton's a great offensive team. They played their butt off, but this San Diego State defense is just next level right now. Control, who do you got in this one?
I was just saying, I think it's funny you mentioned the 2020 season because that was the year that got canceled due to COVID at the beginning of the pandemic. They were 30-2 that year. That is widely regarded as the best team they've ever had. They were going to be number 1 seed. They were 3 in the country. They were 30-2 when the season got called off.
I mentioned 2000. I don't think it's ever happened.
Oh no, it's 2000. Well, in 2020 they were. I thought you said 2020. 2020 was the year. And a lot of people are pointing back to that. This is, they think the way if you believe in the whole fate and Cinderella runs and all that good stuff, a lot of people think this is the universe paying them back for getting screwed out of 2020. Not that they were definitely going to win, but like I said, they were 30-2. They were the best team in the country.
75-1 walking into the tournament,
which is crazy. But if you think about it, back right before the tournament started, when we did the weeks leading up to it, Gene, you kept saying, if you can have all the top 4 seeds, give me the field. UConn was one of those teams that were, I think they were like a 5 seed at the time they were talking about it, and we were like, we want UConn, but it's crazy. Like we knew that, we knew that it would be this much disparity, and UConn's the only team that's still standing of the teams that we've talked about so far during the college basketball season. But in this matchup specifically, though, I am going with San Diego State as well. I think what they do defensively, I think it's going to cause a lot of problems for Florida Atlantic. The one thing that I do want to give Florida Atlantic a lot of credit for, though, is that in their game against Kansas State, every time it felt like Kansas State was about to go on a run and put the game out of reach, Florida Atlantic would answer almost instantly. Like they'd come down, hit a 3. Obviously Keontae Johnson was in foul trouble in that game, so that definitely helped. But Florida Atlantic was answering every single Kansas State call, So I think that Florida Atlantic team is very resilient. But once San Diego State gets their rhythm and they play that caliber defense, I think they're going to cause some turnovers, get out in transition. And I think they're going to try and turn that game into a track meet. Obviously, San Diego State keeps it low scoring. So does Florida Atlantic. But I think Florida Atlantic has finally met their match. It's been an incredible run, but I think this is when the rubber meets the road for them.
Listen, I can't argue with anybody in this tournament. I can't argue. I've been wrong every time. Kentucky, Kansas State. I will give myself a little piece of credit. If you guys remember our college basketball preview show, I was the only one that brought up Creighton. I said Creighton is a dark horse to make the Final Four. I had them right outside my Final Four. I said they got a really good team this year, and Creighton made it 1 game away. So I was on point with that Creighton pick, very close. But did Gene win his bet asking for a friend? What was the bet? I forget. I think Peter said something last week, and I was arguing, but I didn't win my bet. I probably lost it. Kyle, my dad picked the U. So that's incredible. What was the bet, Pete? Can you help me out? I know you were talking crash to me last week. What's up, Key? Key in the building. Next game, UConn versus the U. What is your thoughts on UConn versus the U?
I mean, for me, I think it comes down to the big man for UConn. Sonogo has been incredible so far this entire tournament. And I don't know if Miami has an answer for him. I don't know if anybody in the country has an answer for him the way he's playing right now. The one thing with Miami is that, they got down, like I said, double digits in the second half against that Texas team, and they fought back. And you've kind of seen that as a repeated trend for them. First game of the tournament against Drake, they were down pretty much all game, and they just clawed their way back and found a way to win it late. I think against this UConn team, though, if you put yourself in that hole, they will bury you. So I do have UConn winning this game. I just think it's going to be too much physicality in the paint. UConn has them rolling right now, and I'd argue, we just talked about it, but I'd argue that they've been the best looking team so far this entire tournament.
I don't disagree with anything you're saying. I will say Isaiah Wong's played out of his mind for the U.
He has, but again, though, that first half against Texas, he had 2 points.
Yeah.
Second half obviously showed up, but I think if you're going through spurts like that, and even against Indiana, it was kind of the same way. The first half, he started off slow. Second half is when he really put it on. I think against a team like UConn, who's playing how they are right now, you start off that slow, you're going to have a hell of a time trying to climb out of that hole.
They're literally a basket, though. Like I'll tell you right now, that UConn team just seems to always be able to get to the rim and be able to get a layup at any time.
Yep.
Anytime Gonzaga was trying to make a run to make that game closer, it was just like UConn layup. And they have like these, I love these type of plays. They have almost like they're lane screens, like they're setting screens in the lane to allow a layup line. And it's absolutely incredible to watch. Like it's actually an illegal screen to set up in the lane, but they're setting up like lane screens to set up layups, which is incredible. So if you've been watching UConn basketball, you'll know what I'm talking about. It's very well coached.
Yeah, I mean, Coach Hurley has them playing at a very high level. I would agree with Cottrell. I think if you're just going strictly off the eye test, I don't think you could say anybody's consistently looked better than UConn. I think Miami has been very good at kind of not having their best stuff in the first game and keeping themselves in games and making those comebacks. The problem is you're playing a UConn team who has, gotten out early on every single person they played, kept their foot on the throat, gas down, and they've just thumped people. If they get out on one of those runs, I don't know if they get too far out of touch where Miami can't make that comeback. I'm going to go with UConn as well. I think they win by like 8 points. I think Miami's defense keeps them in that game. But Cottrell already said, and Gene as well, UConn just looks so efficient no matter what they want to do. If they want to run a play down low, they get it. If they want to kick it back out, they hit a jumper. If they drive to the lane and want to get to the rim, nobody's been able to stop them do that either. They're just clicking in every facet of their offense right now. There's nothing. You've seen teams kind of play zone and try to collapse, take the lane away, and they just sit there and bomb threes. And then you have to come out of that, and they get back into man. And like Gene said, they just start running plays, and it looks like a layup line. There's been nobody able to solve the offense yet.
I will say this: if Miami keeps that game within 5 points at the half, you're in for a treat in the second half.
Yeah,
Miami can score, and they have two guys that can light it up.
Yeah, and I mean, obviously Isaiah Wong is their go-to, can create off the dribble, but that Miami has a great 3-point shooting team. At least it has been in the tournament. They've really found ways. The Indiana game specifically is the one that keeps coming to mind for me, because every single time that I felt like Indiana might start to build a comeback, they would just answer with a three. So that is the one thing that Miami does have going for them. And when they get hot, they're a very streaky team.
I'll do you one better, Gene. I think halftime's a little too early. I think if they can get to the 11-10 minute timeout, TV timeout, they're within 5. Then I think you have a really good ball game, because then I think at that point UConn knows what type of game this is. Miami's going to take them down to the wire, kind of the deep water type thing, and then we'll see how UConn operates offensively when it's a tight game. They've had the luxury, and to their credit, they've had the luxury of playing very free because they're smoking everybody. There's no tension in the shots. There's no there's no worry of taking the wrong shot or making one extra pass, turning the ball over. They've had the luxury of not having to worry about that because they're just they're boat racing everybody. You get them in a close game down the stretch, it changes the offense. It changes things. Kids play different. So
but what's so unique about Miami, Bill? We talk about experienced guards in the tournament.
Mm-hmm.
They have a 5th-year senior in Jordan Miller. They have a 4th-year junior in Isaiah Wong. I feel like that having that backcourt with that presence, 9 years of experience between the two, and they're their 2 leading scorers. Like, you have a calmness about you. And listen, call it what it is. They're very good. They're a very good coach team. Very good coach team.
No doubt about it.
I'll take UConn in this one because I think they've been the best team in the tournament, but I would not be surprised if Miami upsets the world. I would love to see a Miami versus Florida Atlantic finals. That would be such a fun finals to watch. But I think we'll see a UConn versus Florida Atlantic, or a UConn versus San Diego State. But before we get off NCAA basketball, I'll tell you what. I'm going to say something for you right now. And we talked about this a ton on our shows before. I want to give the ladies some love. I really do. I want to give the ladies bracket some love. And it's been a really fun tournament. From the Cavender twins making it all the way to the Elite Eight to, you watch Caitlin Clark with the 40-point triple-double. Aaliyah Boston and the dominating South Carolina team. LSU, and they're so sneaky too. I think LSU actually beats Virginia Tech. And
I do too.
They played their superstar played her worst game. Alexis Mars played her worst game for LSU, and they still figured out a way. I'm sorry, not Alexis Mars. Angel Reese played her worst game for LSU this entire tournament. She was 3 for 15. She's averaged 23 points a game, and they still won by 12 points. They have the head coach, who I hate, Kim Mulkey, but she's a great head coach. I can't stand her. I really think she's a bad human being, but I won't get into that too much. But she's a great women's basketball coach. I got to give her all the credit in the world. You got Dawn Staley, South Carolina. You got Caitlin Clark, who is just an absolute stud. I think that, did you know that the Iowa versus Louisville game drew more than any regular season basketball game that night? NBA game?
I did not know that.
It drew more attendance than any regular season basketball game playing that night.
Will say that's been the one like brilliant thing about this tournament so far, is that we've gotten to see these not all time, but we've gotten to see these great matchups. Like the best players in the country have been facing off against each other. Yeah. So in that game specifically, you had Caitlin Clark going up against Haley Van Lith. So, she's been consistently one of the best players in the country. And obviously Caitlin Clark has willed Iowa to the Final Four now. The fun thing to watch about this is that, and I was going to bring this up at the end, so I'm kind of glad that we're talking about this now. I think you have your national championship game with South Carolina and Iowa. I think whoever wins that is going to go on and win the title. And that's not taking anything away from Virginia Tech, because they've had an incredible season, and it's not taking anything away from LSU. But how my thinking kind of goes behind it is South Carolina has looked as dominant as can be all season long. They're 36-0 right now. If Caitlin Clark and company can find a way to take down those giants, then I think there's nobody that's going to stop Caitlin Clark from cutting down the nets.
See, that's the point, though. Like, I think if South Carolina wins, I think that they're too physical of a team for Virginia Tech. But LSU is just as physical. Those SEC women's basketball teams are physical basketball teams. Let me take it a step further. If Iowa wins, either one of the teams on the other side could beat them. 100%.
I agree.
I'm not saying it's impossible. I'm just saying
I wouldn't say that's the finals. I think that's what I want to watch. I want to watch Aaliyah Boston and South Carolina versus Caitlin Clark. I want to watch that, and I'm glad it's happening in the Final Four, because I'm going to be honest with you, it's less likely that could happen in the finals. They'd have to both win another game versus another elite group of people, but South Carolina is the best team in the country, and I think that
for sure.
And
South Carolina's on the verge of being one of the best teams ever. I mean, they end up going 30-0. I mean, you're comparing them to, one or two of old Pat Summitt's team, and obviously the undefeated UConn teams. They're in that discussion. I wouldn't sell Virginia Tech too short, though. I mean, they got Georgia Morey. She's a very good little guard. She can light it up. I think that game's going to be very close. It looked like, I don't know how much Cottrell watched of it. I mean, we looked for the
Ohio
first
State gave them all they could handle in the first half.
For the first half, I mean, it looked like Ohio State was going to win that game. She was struggling, and she came out in the third quarter and just started bombing. And she caught fire and started shooting well finally, and they kind of went on a run, and that was it. But Dawn Staley, started out at Temple. She's got local ties here anyway. Gone to South Carolina and turned that team into a powerhouse. I mean, they go 30-0. I mean, I don't. That's something special. Kim Mulkey, I agree with Gene, not the best woman on the planet, but she caught a lot of flack from leaving leaving Baylor, which was already Baylor, which was a women's powerhouse college. It was. She went to LSU, and in 2 years, they're sitting here in the Final Four. They're a scrappy team, and they play with a lot of attitude. A lot of attitude, chip on their shoulder, a lot of belief. I think that Virginia Tech game and Virginia Tech versus LSU game is a great game. I think Dawn Staley. I think that team is going to play defense. I think they limit Caitlin Clark, a little bit. I think she probably still scores mid-20s, but I don't think she goes off for 40. And I think South Carolina is going to have their way offensively with Iowa. I think they're just going to be too much or too physical down low. I think they're going to score. I think South Carolina wins that game by 8+.
It's fair. They're 11.5-point favorites.
Yeah, it did open at 12.5 though. So I mean, if it's 11.5 now, I went down. So I mean, people are putting money on Iowa.
Caitlin Clark effect, man, that girl's incredible. All right, well,
let's calling her the Splash Sister.
Yep.
Let's move on to. By the way, she said that she wants to stay 2 more years in college,
which is, I mean, I think is insane. But one more I get because
she's like, I love Iowa. I love the program. I love women's college basketball. And it's just like one of those things so refreshing to hear that. We're being honest when we say this, Control.
She's getting paid more in college than she would in the WNBA.
Yeah, that's fair too.
So that's probably also a big part of it. She's getting her education. She's still I'm sure she's raking in at least $1 million in NIL money, which is going to be more than she'd make with her WNBA contract. So I would say that's probably a big part of it too. But it's nice to see in the women's game because you're always going to see it because of their rules with the draft eligibility.
Yeah.
I just think and sue me, I watch both, but I just think women's college basketball is more fun to watch than the WNBA right now. But that's just my opinion.
I wouldn't argue that.
The stars are out right now in the NCAA, and your second biggest star didn't even play this season. So
you're right. All right, so let's move on to MLB. We have our third baseman's list, and then we'll get into our full preview of the MLB season. Whoa, this is an interesting list. You just like spring it on me. It's like, bang, there it is.
You went full homer. I was waiting for it.
Of course you went full. Well, you went homer too. You have Alec Bohm 9. That's okay. I think Alec Bohm's great third baseman. So you're going to get no argument from me there. Let's see. You don't have Eugenio. Nobody has Eugenio Suarez, which is fine.
So our top 6 is all the same.
Yeah, it should be the same. The top 6 is the top 6, right? Like they're the top 6.
I agree.
It just depends on what order you put them in. You can flip Devers and Riley, and then the top 3 are the top 3, no matter what you want to look at it. J-Ram being 1's a little ridiculous, but we'll talk about that.
It's not, but
it is ridiculous. It's 100% ridiculous.
If you look at his numbers last
year, the other
year,
2 are 1,000,000% better fielders, like 1,000,000% better fielders, and they hit no well.
That's fine.
Let's get there first.
Tell me I'm lying.
I mean, I'm not disagreeing with you.
J-Ram had like 130 RBIs last year, coming off of his best season yet.
126, you're right.
Yeah, so
lifetime achievement award, but I got it. All right,
we're talking about last year. We're talking about last year. Let's not do the lifetime thing.
Okay. Well, we get to start with number 10. Someone that's not on anyone's list. Go ahead, Control, start us off.
My number 10 is a guy who hasn't played a full season in 3 years, and I struggle with number 10. I didn't know who to put on this list. I'm going off of hope here. Anthony Rendon has consistently been, the past few years that we've done this, he's been on our list before. Obviously, he's faded off, but I'm going off the hope that he stays healthy this year. So far during spring training, he's looked the part. He's batting .500 so far spring training. I'm hoping for a full season here. I think he gets back to a little bit of what he used to be, and I think if he can get back there, he could be a top 10 third baseman in the league. So I got Anthony Rendon as my number 10.
It's blasphemy. It's 100% blasphemy with all the people, with Yandy Diaz now on your list, with Alec Bohm now on your list, with Eugenio Suarez now on your list. You have a guy that is a cripple of himself.
Hey, he's staying healthy this year.
I hope so, for your sake.
You guys are feisty with this already.
I'm having fun. I love Control.
We all love each other. I'm going with the rookie prodigy. I'm going to go number 10. I'm going to go Gunnar Henderson. if you're not familiar with him, he is the next kind of, I hate using the term can't miss, but that's kind of what he is. He's the same ilk of his teammate Ali Rochman, Bobby Witt Jr. from last year. He's a five-tool kid. He can do everything. Got a cannon, plays great defense at third base. He's going to hit for average, power, and he can run. Baltimore is building to really be a good team in 2 years, like win the East good team in 2 years. This kid's a stud. I can't wait to watch him play a full season. He's going to be in the heart of that lineup with Adley, like I said, who we talked about during the catchers list, who is probably going to be the best catcher in the major leagues for the next decade or so. If you're not familiar with him, just go YouTube him. His highlights will pop up, and they are impressive. He's number 10 for my list. I would assume he's probably way higher next year on everybody's list.
Okay. Number 10 for me is Gunnar Henderson. Also, I agree with everything that Charlie just said. I think that that he's a can't miss prospect, absolute stud. It's gonna, very good defensively. He can hit for power. He's gonna hit for average. It's the funny thing. The way to put this would be, Alec Boehm is a poor man's version of what Gunnar Henderson is, and speaking from a Phillies fan. My number 9 is Matt Chapman. I think that Matt Chapman could be higher on my list. I do. I think he's a good third baseman. I just have so many Blue Jays high up on my list. I'm way higher on most Blue Jays than most people. Someone like these guys can't have 150 wins. So Matt Chapman was the guy who just moved down a little bit for me. But once again, Matt Chapman's very good third baseman, and I think he can be anywhere in the 7 through 9 range.
Number 9 for me, I have Alec Boehm. We all saw. I mean, if you're a Phillies fan anyway, you saw how he started last year, had a rough start to the year, had the game where he had 4 errors, and you saw him mouthing off, saying I effing hate it here, and from that point on, he kind of turned the season around. He had a great second half. He had over 320 in the second half for the Phillies. He got very confident defensively. They worked with him a lot. And he just had a great second half, and I think he's going to build off of that. He came into spring training. He had put 15 pounds of muscle on. He hit real well in spring training. I think his confidence is growing. I think he's the next young kid the Phillies are going to count on, especially with them losing Rhys Hoskins now to fill that void a little bit. He's really, really settled into Philadelphia in that position over the corner. With people be there before him like Mike Schmidt. Scott Rowland, not easy shoes to fill, but I think with his confidence and just the way he finished the year last year and the way he started spring training, I think he's done a really good year. It could be, seeing it through rose-colored glasses type thing because he's a Philly, but I think he's going to solidify himself as, being a correct choice to be on the bottom half of this list. So Alec Boehm's number 9 for me.
All right, so my number 9 is a guy who struggled again. Another guy who struggled last season. I'm predicting bounce back here. My number 9 is Max Muncy in LA. I think his numbers next season are gonna look a lot better. I think he is one of those batters that will benefit from the rule change with the shift. Obviously, he hit 21 home runs last year. I think that average will go up, and I just think him being in that Dodgers lineup, he's just going to produce numbers just from the sheer fact that the lineup is just so talented. So I do have Max Muncy being a top 10 third baseman this upcoming season. My number 8 is Gunnar Henderson. Again, you guys have already talked about him. I mean, he's the next big thing. So I think him going up to the Baltimore team. I mean, last year Baltimore had a third baseman that won the Gold Glove, and he's coming in and he's gonna be taking his spot. So if they believe in him that much, the kid has to be special. So I think he has a phenomenal year.
Number 8 for me, I have Yandy Diaz. He's on my list. He's on Gene's list. He is absent from Cottrell's list. Not sure about that, but I mean, we'll get into that later. Listen, Yandy's on both of our lists because of what kind of hitter he is. Almost batted 300 last year. Not a super power guy, not a home run guy, more of a gap-to-gap guy. High on base percentage, over 400 last year. as well as he defensively he struggled last year. In my opinion, he regressed last year. I think he was something like minus 12, 13, somewhere in there, minus that many runs saved. Really bad year defensively, but again, with when you're producing that much offensively, and you put up those numbers for a Tampa Bay Rays team that always struggles to score anyway, he's going to hit in the heart of that lineup. I think he has another good offensive year. He's always going to hit. I think his defense takes a little bit of a step, forward again this year, a little bit better than last year. So that's why he made number 8 on my list.
You talk about a bad defensive year for Yandy Diaz. Might have been the worst defensive year I've ever seen in my life from a third baseman. He was minus 16 runs saved. His bat is incredible, but listen, I got the next 2 guys I have are no defensive stellar players. Eugenio Suarez is a bomber, man. Hit 31 home runs. By the way, he plays for the Seattle Mariners, which, we get the Reds here. That's okay. But Eugenio Suarez, ever when he got traded to the Mariners, it was almost like he lit up. I got out of Cincinnati. I got out of this garbage city with this garbage franchise, and I really seen him. He had a good second half of the season, and I think that he continues that. I think he could have a 40 home run season. Yandy Diaz, another one. He's not on here for his defense, 100%. Guy had the worst defensive third baseman season I've ever seen in my entire life. However, the guy can rake, and he's going to rake this year. I think that Rays lineup is deep, and I think Yandy Diaz has a great year offensively.
Number 7 for me is Matt Chapman from the Toronto Blue Jays. Struggled a little bit offensively last year and actually struggled a little bit defensively. Matt Chapman was for a long time the best defensive third baseman in the American League. If not, he was right up there with Nolan Arenado. He's a Platinum Gold Glove winner. He's phenomenal when he was in Oakland. I think he struggled a little bit last year, and he didn't get, he had a short camp, had visa issues right at the beginning of the year with the pandemic thing, and he didn't. I don't think he really ever got settled in to Toronto. I know he's capable of defensively. Again, another guy. Google Matt Chapman defensive highlights, and your jaw will drop. He's incredible. I think he bounces back defensively. He's always been a 230, 235 type guy. I think it's a little bit lost in the shuffle with the absolute studs he has in front of him in Toronto. But I think his offensive numbers pick back up a little bit this year. Again, I'm a very big proponent of when guys play, one place their whole career and change. I think it takes them a full year to really get comfortable and get in a routine and, mentally get right. So I think Matt Chapman has a bounce back year. I have him number 7.
I also have Matt Chapman number 7. Shally gave a lot of great reasoning for that. I think defensively, you're going to see Matt Chapman get back to what you're used to seeing. I think the Toronto Blue Jays, Gene said he's been high on Toronto. I've been just as high. Like last year, I had him going to the World Series. I think that Blue Jays roster is they have the team to make it all the way, and I think Matt Chapman is going to be a big part of that for him. So I think Matt Chapman bounces back from the year that he had last year, and I think he gets back true to form. My number 6 is Alex Bregman. Alex Bregman, Houston Astros, kind of, going into last year, obviously it was one of their big names, but when, Yordan Alvarez and Jeremy Pena, Kyle Tucker last year as well, they stepped up. I feel like Alex Bregman kind of got lost in the shuffle just a little bit, just because of the performance those guys had in the playoffs. But you know what you're going to get with them next season. Probably 25 home runs, 100 RBIs. Again, he's in a loaded lineup. The way that he plays, I just think it's going to be hard for him not to put up numbers to have him this high up on the list.
Yeah, I mean, I have Alex Bregman number 6 as well. I mean, we all do. Everything Cottrell mentioned is spot on. I mean, he's only a 255, 260 career hitter. Bregman's made his name because of how, clutch he is in the playoffs, and he does come through in the playoffs. Had a little bit of a lackluster World Series and, even NL or ALCS for his terms, and his reputation. But, with Alvarez and all those guys in front of him, it didn't really matter. But defensively, I mean, he's very mediocre. He always has been. I mean, he's solid. He's going to make all the plays that he should. He'll probably have a couple bonehead errors here and there. maybe make 1 or 2 highlight plays a year. But like you said, I mean, power wise, I mean, he's only a 25 to 30 home run guy. He's not going to go anything crazier than that, but gets a lot of hits with runners in scoring position. He is a 95 plus RBI guy every season. And he lands smack dab right in the middle of everybody's list here. Like we said, when we put him up, this is, for me anyway, this was, Gene kind of mentioned it. This was the cutoff point between 7 and 6 for me. I think 6 is a different level than 6 and up is a different level than everybody else, no matter who we have at the bottom of these lists.
I hate Bregman. I don't like him. I don't like the Astros. That's why I have him 6. I can't put him ahead of anybody ahead of him. I'm not going to talk about him too much. I hate the Astros. Just there we go. My number 5 is Rafi Devers. Hey, listen, I'm just going to call it like
I feel like last year when we did third baseman's list, you had mentioned something with Bregman. You're like, well, he wasn't a cheater, so I can kind of give him a little bit of a pass.
They just beat us in the World Series, Control.
I get it. I'm just saying. You gave him a pass last year. That's all.
I'm not giving him a pass anymore. Rafi Devers.
Control, did you watch the World Series?
Rafi Devers is number 5. I think he's going to take a little bit of a step back, in my opinion, with his offensive numbers, losing Xander Bogaerts in that lineup. Now, their projected lineup, they haven't batting second. They haven't batting behind Alex Verdugo. Okay, Justin Turner is now his protection in the lineup. I think that's a mistake. I think they should have put him in 3-hole. I think they should have Yoshida right behind him. I think that's the protection that he needs in the lineup. Yoshida coming over from Japan. You just watched him in the World Baseball Classic. Guy's an absolute monster. I'm not saying 5's bad. I just think Rafi Devers has a 5 season. Like, I think the 4 guys ahead of him do really well. Rafi Devers is still going to bat 300. He's still going to pound the ball. He's still going to play good defensive third base. Rafi Devers is a stud. He just is what he is. Top 5 third baseman in the league. 4 guys I have ahead of him are just better.
So number 5, I have Austin Riley, the Braves. He pretty much, being a Phillies fan, we kind of saw this coming for a while, but last year he finally had his breakout, like, I'm here, like, I'm legit type season. Hit 275, somewhere right around there. Thing about Austin Riley, people don't realize he's actually very good defensively. I think people look at him and they think he's big and he's a bigger guy and he's kind of slow, and he's not. He's very agile at third base. He was +6, run save last year. Never going to win a Gold Glove, but he's above average, playing third base. Big power guy, hits home runs, 38, 93 RBIs last year. It is. I don't know if he backs that up with everybody finally healthy in Atlanta. I think there's a chance. I think I'm just going off Rafi being a little bit of a better hitter overall, and not relying on the home run as much as Austin Riley did. But that's why I had Austin Riley 5. But again, I can't argue with him being 4 or 5.
So my number 5 is Rafael Devers as well. I mean, Gene mentioned a lot of it. I think the 4 guys ahead of Devers they just have better rosters around them. I think they're gonna have the opportunity to put up better numbers. Rafael Devers also just signed the big contract this past offseason. I'm always, every sport, no matter what it is, you sign that big extension, I'm always going to be curious about what your motivation is going to be like. Cause it's like, do you take that? Do you take a breath of fresh air that you've made it to that point? Or do you keep the pedal to the metal and keep it going? I think Rafael Devers is going to be the one that keeps it going. I just think that numbers wise, I just don't see him competing with the 4 guys that are ahead of him. Like Gene said, number 5 it's no slight to him. I think he's incredible. If he would have got moved, maybe he would have been higher on my list. But him being in Boston, I think I have him at the 5 spot. Number 4 is Austin Riley. Bill just mentioned him. Ton of home runs last year, 38 home runs. Talking about power numbers. I mean, I think Austin Riley is going to have the potential to be in the MVP conversation towards the end of the year. I mean, if last year was him starting to climb and hit the peak, I mean, I think the sky could be the limit for him. I mean, we'll talk about it a little bit more with the previews and things like that, but I think Austin Riley has an incredible year for a team that's going to be poised to make a deep playoff run.
I mean, I get you. I'll go on. That's my turn.
Number 4 for me, I have Rafael Devers. Gene and Control have already talked about him. He's a very good hitter. He's average defensively. I think he was minus last year. But
Mine's one.
yeah. So I mean, he's again, he's going to make the plays he should. He's not going to wow you. But very good hitter. And again, the separating factor for me was I weighed Raphael, his overall hitting against Austin Riley's power, and obviously Austin's a better defensive third baseman. Again, hitting in that ballpark in Boston, other than Green Monster, it's a big park. So I think he's the ability to put up just better numbers, not relying on the long ball. I always go safer that way. It was razor thin. I went back and forth. I do agree with Gene. I think Boston's going to take a little time to figure out their lineup. I think Verdugo's going to lead off. I think Devers will hit second. I do think it's only a matter of time before they flip flop. Yoshida and Justin Turner. He's going to be the 3-hole hitter, and that's going to be their top 3 for the majority of the year. And once that happens, I think you're going to see both their numbers pop up. So I have a number 4. Again, would hear any and all arguments about flip flopping them like we did. Don't have an issue with it either way. It's just a personal preference for me.
I thought Riley's coming out party was 2 years ago. I think he had batted 303 and hit 33 home runs. Last year, I think he took a little bit of a step back, batting 280 and hitting 38 home runs. He had 5 more home runs, but 25 less points on the batting average. But Austin Riley is a stud. He's penciled in the 3-hole in the Atlanta lineup. He's in the middle of a very deep lineup with a very great team, and he's in the midst of hitting the prime of his career. If the 3 people ahead of him weren't all world players, I'd have Austin Riley even higher. I struggled to not put him ahead of Jose Ramirez, but Jose Ramirez, in my opinion, just has such a great bat that it leads to, I don't know. I just feel like that he's a doubles machine, and Austin Riley was just a hair below him. To be perfectly honest with you, the space between 3 and 4 was less to me than it was between 4 and 5. So I got to go to my number 3, which is J-Ram. Jose Ramirez is a stud. He's penciled in about 3rd in that Guardians lineup. They added Josh Bell to be protection in the lineup. So, you can't, if you're a left-handed pitcher, you can pitch around him a little bit. If you're a right-handed pitcher, you can't pitch around him at all, because Josh Bell is super powerful from the left side of the box. So I think that J-Ram still has a great season. I think he crushes 100 RBIs again. I think he'll have 30 home runs. But the 2 guys ahead of him are just better. They're all world players. They're ridiculous on the defensive side of things. And not only are they're ridiculous on the defensive side of things, they smoke the ball. I could argue that both guys ahead of him hit better than he does. And I can tell you without a shadow of a doubt, as a fact, that both guys ahead of him are a million times better fielders.
I'm not gonna burst the bubble, but I'm not gonna start the argument. But I have Manny number 3. He had the worst year defensively of his career. He was negative in runs saved. First time that's ever happened. You could say it's a blip on the radar. I love the kid. I always have. We ended up with Bryce Harper. But everybody forgets when those 2 started and he was the first one to come visit. Everybody wanted Manny Machado over Bryce Harper. You could say it worked out for the best. I was greedy, said I wanted both of them, but obviously that wasn't going to be realistic. But it's a Phillies fan. You pray for 2 and hope you get 1, and we did. So that being said, I think the difference. This is the same as 4 and 5 for me. If you have Manny 2 over Ramirez, it's that close. It's not a big thing for me. I just hope Manny isn't starting to take that slide defensively. I think he's too good that he's not to, but again, I have to go off of what he did last year. It's the first year he's ever minus runs saved. His offensive numbers are still there. They're probably even gonna go up, based upon having Soto full time now, and you're gonna get Tatis back in about a month. So I think he puts up another killer numbers, just like Austin Riley. For the first 4 months of the season, they were both in the MVP discussion. So, I have a number 3. If you have a number 2, you have number 1. I wouldn't even be surprised at that. So I think the top 3. I think there's a jump between the top 3 and even 4 and 5. So that's how I look at it. That's how I ranked it anyway, in my opinion.
My number 3, I got Manny Machado as well. Obviously, we know what he does at the plate. I mean, I think Machado, based on what I saw last year, like Bill said, he was in the thick of the MVP conversation until it got towards the end of the season. So, I mean, I think Machado is going to have another incredible season. It's just that the 2 guys that I have ahead of him, I think they're going to have better seasons this one upcoming season. Machado, of course, crazy numbers. He's going to bat 300 plus, and he's going to put up 30 plus home runs. So it's not a slight to him. I just think for this one particular season, he's going to slide in at third. My number 2 is Nolan Arenado. Nolan Arenado, best defensive third baseman I've ever seen play. I'm sure Bill and Gene they'll name off some people, but way before I started watching baseball. But 10 straight gold gloves. I mean, that's unprecedented. So, and the way that he's hitting right now, in that we saw in the World Baseball Classic, obviously you get that momentum, you get to build off of that. Incredible hitter already. He's gonna 300 plus guy. He can hit for power if he wants to. He's going to be on a special team. My difference between my 1 and my 2, Nolan 100% can win NL MVP. I just don't have him winning NL MVP. Little precursor there. So that's the only reason why he's in my number 2 slot as opposed to being number 1. As a player, I think Nolan is better, and I'm 100% saying 100% on board with that. But we're talking about the projection of one season. And for one season, if someone brings home an MVP award and the other one doesn't, they have to be number 1 on my list.
That's going to be fun. So I'm going to go with Jose Ramirez, Cottrell's favorite Cleveland Indian. Listen, he's one of the best hitters in the game. Defensively, he had a better year last year than he has throughout his career. He was +2 run save, which is, again, his average. Zero is pretty much average across the board for major leaguers. So he's not known for his glove, but he's a little bit better than I think most people realize when you start looking at the numbers. He's an all-world hitter, though. He has power from both sides. Again, he's a guy that doesn't have to hit the long ball, though. He just rakes. He can hit singles. He hits doubles. His average with runner in scoring position for the year last year was over 300. He gets it done year after year, over and over. He had 120 some RBIs last year, I think. 126. Through the machine, and again, he is the linchpin to that Cleveland, Cleveland Guardians lineup. Before I get in trouble for saying Indians, he is what makes that team go, and I think that's what keeps him in the MVP race. Because if he doesn't produce, they are not good real quick. I don't know. We'll get into this in a second, but I don't know if you could have number 1, but the MVP discussion is obviously going to be very interesting when we get there. But I'm gonna let Gene do his thing.
I got Manny Machado number 2. Yes, he had a -3 defensive run save last year. Manny Machado throughout his career has been the second best fielding third baseman in the league. The guy moves from shortstop to third base in different scenarios. Got to settle in at a different ballpark. This is his 3rd year in San Diego. I think this is the year. This is his 4th year. It was his 3rd year last year in San Diego. This is his 4th year in San Diego. I think he settles in perfectly in a stacked lineup with Juan Soto, Fernando Tatis, Xander Bogaerts. I mean, that team is just loaded. And I think Manny Machado is one of the finalists for MVP in the National League. I don't think he wins it, but I'll get into that, obviously. My number 1 is Nolan Arenado. Nolan Arenado was 100. It's funny because Goldschmidt won the award and Arenado was top 5 the whole season. So the St. Louis Cardinals had 2 top 5 MVP candidates. Nolan Arenado, Cottrell, you said it perfectly. Nolan Arenado's best third baseman defensively ever to play the game. There's only one guy that's really going to give him a run for his money, and he was my honorable mention. I didn't get a chance to talk about him, but I want to just bring him up now. And there's a kid on the Pirates. His name's Ke'Bryan Hayes. and he had 24 runs saved last year. I don't think you realize how ridiculous that stat is. So that's just next unworldly stuff. The Pirates have 2 or 3 guys that are just out of this world talented that are young. He was my honorable mention, and Arenado is the best third baseman in all of baseball. The guy makes ridiculous plays look routine. 17 runs saved. Can you imagine what that does for your team defensively? Arenado is the best third baseman on the planet. He's my number one.
I'm going to agree. And the crazy thing is, this is going to tell you how good he is. I could give you another 5-minute rundown and not repeat anything that Gene just said. Defensively, just to put this, he broke into the leagues when he was 22. He will be 32 this year. He's played 10 major league seasons. He's won a Gold Glove every single year he's been in the league, including his rookie year. He has won the Platinum Gold Glove 6 times, which is given to the best overall fielder, regardless of position, in the National League. Your Mount Rushmore for defensive third baseman is, in any given order, it's Brooks Robinson, Mike Schmidt, and Nolan Arenado's already on it. I already mentioned he's only 32. He wins another 4 and 5. You're going to be able to say that you watched the best defensive third baseman ever play baseball. Jets, Gene already mentioned Brian in Pittsburgh. Arenado was plus 19 last year. Had another year where he was high 290s, hitting over 30 home runs, 100 and some RBIs. That's batting behind Paul Goldschmidt, which is again, you look at the year he had, the dude won MVP for God's sake. You flip flop. What did Nolan Arenado's numbers look like last year?
Agreed.
He is, Gene mentioned about Machado being the second best. I would say he's third because, again, Machado was still in the AL. Matt Chapman was back then still winning Gold Gloves. But you look at you watch the 3 of them on the most part routinely play, third base, and it's special. We've all seen them plays over and over. He made in Colorado, now in St. Louis. The dude is just beyond gifted defensively. And on top of that, he just hits the shit out of the ball.
Manny Machado's errors aren't like skill errors. They're always mental lapses, like he falls asleep in the game, like he's not 100% involved, like his mental aspect isn't always there. You can see like he just has a mental lapse on an error. Whereas when you watch other people play third, like just for instance, right? Nolan Arenado is plus 19 runs saved. Anyone want to take a guess what Alec Boehm was?
It's probably minus something, especially because of the first half he had.
You want to take a guess? Cottrell?
No clue.
Minus 17. He was the worst fielding third baseman in baseball. So to think of a difference of 36 runs at the third base position during the course of a year. Think how many games are won by 1 run. Division. That's the difference between winning a division. And Nolan Arenado just steals plays away from guys. It's just unbelievable watching the kid. The guy, there's so many doubles that should be hit down the left field line that Arenado just stops. And he makes outs out of them. Not just stops to save like the double. He makes outs out of them. Some of the most ridiculous plays you'll ever watch. He's the best defensive third baseman I've ever seen in my life, and it's not that close.
I think when it's all said and done, that's probably where we're going to be. You go back and watch Mike Schmidt play, dude. He was different. He's at 15, but that's what you're talking about. That is, again, he's only 32, and that is the company that he keeps already. And I don't care who you put it for. It's a drop off. If you go Mount Rushmore right now, it's a drop off from the 3 of them. And again, he's for lack of a better term, he's still in the middle of his prime.
Yep.
He is, no disrespect, Cottrell, but he is the best.
But the Guardians are going to win the World Series, and J-Ram's going to win the MVP. What's coming. Jimenez was his number 1 second baseman, and J-Ram.
He was not. He was not. He was Bill's number 1. Get it right. If you're going to talk shit, get it right.
But I'll finish with this. You know, I know he's near and dear to your heart, and I get all that. There's no disrespect whatsoever, but Nolan Arenado is hands down the best third baseman on the planet, and it's not particularly close.
And I don't disagree with you. Again, I don't disagree at all. Nolan Arenado, he finishes second, he finishes third in MVP race. I don't have Nolan Arenado as my NL MVP, so that is the only reason why he's second. If we were rating these guys, if we were going best overall, Nolan Arenado be one, but that's not what I'm doing here.
Machado would be too.
Hey,
You're
if
feisty
you say
with these
so,
lists today.
if you say so,
I'm
sure.
So good. It's just we have this conversation all the time. If there's an ability to put a Cleveland player,
Jimenez was not my number one guy. He was not my number one guy. So your logic is out the door here.
Okay.
I mean, did you want me to put him 3 and then say he was going to win MVP? Like, or should I not put him on my list and said he was going to win an award? Like, how should I have gone about it? My number one is Jose Ramirez. He's gonna benefit tremendously from the shift change. Majority, obviously, he'll switch sides at the plate, but majority of the time he's left-handed batter. Already smacking doubles all the time. 28 home runs last year, I believe. 280 average, 126 RBIs. He's on a Guardians team that shocked me. I was the first one to say last year I thought we were going to be absolutely terrible. I thought it was going to be a 75-win team, no shot at making the playoffs, and they blew my expectations out of the water. So this year, I mean, I think Jose Ramirez is in the prime of his career, and I think we're going to see him have a special year, and it's going to be an MVP caliber season. That's why he's my number one.
Great list, guys.
Gene's so mad.
I'm not mad. I just it's. I get it. I make mistakes too, and you're gonna see one of them soon, which Cottrell was referring to. A little side shot. That's okay. No problem. What are we getting into next, Cottrell? You're leading the board.
Let's see.
We got an MLB preview for the year. I like this. This is the division winners. Oh, look, we all have the Guardians. I'm sure Cottrell's happy about that.
It's due to a lack of options.
Yeah, it's fair. But look, we all have the Blue Jays. Isn't that cute? All right, Cottrell, start us off with your AL.
My AL, I got the defending World Series champions. Winning the AL West. I think the Astros, obviously, big blow losing Justin Verlander. I still think they're going to be the best team in their division with all that they have. The Blue Jays is a team that I've been high on for 2 years now. Last year, clearly, I'm not going to say drop the ball, but they weren't as impressive as I was fully expecting them to be. I think this is the year that they won the division, and then for the AL Central, I have the Guardians. I think Shally and Gene, you guys put it perfect. It's a lack of better options. As much as I think the White Sox are going to compete, I still think this is going to be the Guardians division to lose.
You know, I mean, we all have the same thing, which is crazy. I mean, Houston, I think, is just again, we know what Houston is. They lost Verlander, but they almost reloaded to some degree. Their pitching is going to be fine. Framer's just going to go to number one, and he's an ace. You know, we saw that up close and personal in the World Series. I'm going to disagree a little bit with Toronto. I think it's time for Toronto to kind of put up or shut up. You're going to have some of those kids coming up on contracts the next year or two. They need to make a run. They're too talented to not be sitting in the ALCS this year. I think with the talent they have in that lineup, they have a great rotation now. I think Jose Barrios has to have a bounce back year, and I think if he does, I think there's a chance I don't want to say run away, but I think there's a chance there's a decent they win the AL East by a decent amount. They need a deep run this year. They really do. They're just too talented not to. There's no excuses for me for Toronto this year. I also the Guardians winning the Central. I think their Bray you lost in Chicago. Their pitching staff's a little bit up in the air, minus Dylan Cease, who's a stud. Minnesota, I don't know what Minnesota is. Detroit's smack dab in the middle of a rebuild again. So I will go the Guardians. They have the best pitching. They have the best lineup, consistency wise. So they're my 3 division winners.
My division winners are Houston, Toronto, and the Guardians, just like you guys said. I think Toronto has a great year. You'll see that as we go further. I think that Rondon's already injured, and the Yankees made a terrible mistake signing that huge contract. And I'll start with my wild card teams, and then we'll scroll back. I have the Orioles taking the next step, and a ton of young talent on that team. I think the Yankees are still good enough to make a wild card. And listen, Seattle's the popular team to pick, and I get that. I just think with the addition of DeGrom and Evaldi, and I think with the beginning of their lineup, the top of their lineup, I think Texas is going to get enough wins to sneak into that last wild card spot. So I think the Texas Rangers, I think, this is all on the myth that Jacob DeGrom actually stays healthy for a season, because if he doesn't, back to the cellar you go. But I think the Rangers have a good season as a whole, and I'll have them as my last wild card.
I give you credit, man. I will tell you this: the New York was the easy one to pick here. I do think with that lineup and minus Rendon being hurt already, which I do think is I don't want to say hysterical, but I mean the guy is hurt every year, and the Yankees I feel like pinned all their hopes and dreams on one guy, but pitching still a little bit up in the air, and that's why I give the edge to Toronto. I went back and forth between Tampa, Seattle, Baltimore, and Texas. I said Baltimore. A lot of people gave me some crazy looks. I think you saw what they're capable of last year. They were, till the beginning of September, they were smack dab in the middle of the wild card discussion. I unfortunately think they're still a year away. That's where I'm at. I give Gene the credit in the world for being bold and picking them. I would love to see that come true, because I would love to see Baltimore in the playoffs with all those young kids. I didn't put Texas in for the last reason that Gene mentioned. There is no bigger fan of Jacob DeGrom than myself. I think if you put him in there, you're operating under the impression that he's going to be healthy all year. And I think if he is, I think, Gene and Cottrell are probably right and I'm probably wrong. If he's not, then, I think Texas is in trouble. I went with Seattle. My biggest reason to put Seattle is that they have experience now. They made a great run last year. They had, Houston on the ropes at one point. And I think the biggest advantage they have this year is they're going to have Luis Castillo for the whole year. They got him in the trade deadline last year. Still under contract this year. I think that adds another probably, 10, 11 wins to what they did last year. And I like Tampa Bay. They play defense and they pitch well. They're getting a huge stud back in Tyler Glass now, even though he's going to start the year on the DL. It's just no oblique issue. So it's only a 15-day stint for him. I like their pitching staff up top with Glass now, and obviously Shane McClanahan. So I think Tampa sneaks in because they just play fundamental baseball. They don't beat themselves. So those are my 3.
I just look at the top 5 of Baltimore, and I just kind of reply to what you say. Cedric Mullins, Adley Rutschman, Santander, Mountcastle, and Gunnar Henderson. That's a very loaded top 5. And then when you go to their projected pitching staff, Kyle Gibson's over there, the guy from Philly. Cole Irvin's on that staff. They really need help on their pitching staff. Their pitching staff has a bunch of 4 ERA guys. Kyle Gibson was our number 4. He's going over there to be their ace. That's where Baltimore's biggest issue will come. I think they're going to score with everybody.
Oh, they're going to hit. Listen, they're going to be exciting. And the best thing about that is, everybody's familiar with Baltimore, especially from our area. If you've been to Camden Yards, like that, that was the original ballpark that kind of got, made everybody redo their stadiums. It'll be fun to watch that place full again, and it will be this year. They have a very special young nucleus down there. I hope people turn out to see it. They're going to be very exciting to watch. You mentioned Cedric Mullins, who's going to be kind of like the veteran leader on that team, playing center field for them. It's going to be fun. I'm rooting for him again. I hope at the end of the year you're right. I really do. I would love to see them in the playoffs. I really do. I really would.
All right, then my 3 wild card teams. I have the Yankees. I mean, you guys have talked about the Yankees at length already. I mean, I think at this point. No matter how inconsistent their pitching is going to be, their lineup is going to they're going to hit their way into the playoffs no matter what happens. The Rangers, I think the Rangers do make that jump this year. Of course, a lot of it is contingent on Jacob deGrom being healthy. Like, of course, I think that's a given. But we've said that when we did our pitching preview. I just think with this Rangers team, I think they have enough talent to make the playoffs. Just no slight to the people I left off. I see you guys got the Rays and the Orioles. There's no slights. I think what the Rangers have done and the team that they've built, it's going to be enough to put them in the playoffs this upcoming year. And then my third team was the team that it surprised me last year, at least, and that's the Seattle Mariners. Obviously, Julio Rodriguez had a phenomenal year last year, being the leader of that lineup. I think that Mariners team, I think they keep it rolling, and I think they're going to be a tough team to play in the playoffs next year. I love that Mariners team. I don't love them quite as much as the Blue Jays, but outside of the Guardians, they're definitely up there for me. High on the list of teams that I like.
Let's move on to our awards. All right, I'm here. I know. Wow, this is fun. Same 6 teams, just in different spots. I really almost made a change to mine. Very, very close.
And we kind of thought about this last night. We've realized ours were going to be exactly the same.
Yeah, I think that, and ours are exactly the same. I think that, man, I think San Diego's got the best roster in baseball. You'll see that when I get deeper into this when we go over our projections. But I think their roster is incredible. I think Atlanta's got the second best roster in baseball. I really, really, really wanted to do this, and I didn't have the balls to do it. I put $25 on the Pittsburgh Pirates to win the NL Central, to win $1,000. It's nothing crazy, like my amount of money I spent on them. But I think that every year, it's just never the same 6 teams. It doesn't happen. I get it. I understand where we're at. This is the 6 best teams in the National League. I just think that if some team takes a step back, it's going to be the St. Louis Cardinals. I have Atlanta, St. Louis, San Diego as my division winners. I have the Dodgers, Mets, and Phillies as my wild cards. I think that it's pretty self-explanatory what happened last year. I think, losing Reese is going to hurt our offense for a little while. I think Derek Hall will fit in well there. And I think when Bryce gets back in June, the Phillies will get entrenched into a divisional race. I think the Mets are actually the 6th wild card the last playoff spot this year. I think the Phillies will be closer to the 4 than they will to the 6. With that being said, though, I think Trey Turner could win MVP. The guy's just that's a great addition to this ball club. They're my division winners and my wild card. But, man, I really struggle like heck to not put the Pittsburgh Pirates on here. I love what they're doing. I love the young talent. And if there's a team to fall in love with, if you're not in love with baseball and you want to watch a team and watch young kids grow, the Pirates are the team to watch right now.
Yeah, I mean, I won't disagree with any of that. I mean, honestly, you heard us kind of talk about Baltimore. Pittsburgh's kind of the National League version of Baltimore. I think they're probably a year behind Baltimore. And then I just don't think they have the pitching to just stay relevant. I think St. Louis with the 2 guys they have on the corner, on the corners, Tommy Edman at short, and they just hit too much in my opinion. Jack Flaherty should if he can stay healthy, with Jose Gaetan and a couple other guys behind him. I just think St. Louis is just going to be too fundamental for, just play too good a baseball to win the Central. I will slightly disagree with Gene. I think San Diego has the 2nd best roster in baseball. I do think it's Atlanta. I think it's very close, though. I think if we get, 2021 Blake Snell and, 2020 Yu Darvish, stuff like that, then I think San Diego has the edge. But I think you're splitting hairs between the 2 of them. But I do think San Diego wins the West this year, and I honestly think they win it going away. I think LA is getting too much credit for while they still have a good roster, that team legit has holes now. They are not as complete as they were the last couple years. They've lost a lot of talent. Gene already mentioned one of them. You know, you're losing a potential MVP candidate in Trey Turner, who is now in the Phillies, so the team they're competing with. I have the Phillies in the first wild card, Dodgers in the second, the Mets in the third. I think the Mets are a little
thing.
Yeah. You know, again, I think the Mets, I think losing Diaz, I think a lot of people are trying to sweep that under the rug. It's huge. You know, they're not naming David Robertson as their closer because they don't even have confidence in him yet. But I think he's going to be their de facto closer. And, you know, if anybody watched him pitch for the Phillies last year in the playoffs, that guy was scared to throw a strike. So I think that hurts them. I know they have Verlander and Scherzer, but, you know, and at least in my opinion is by far the best division in baseball. I think the three of those teams are going to beat each other up, but I think it's going to be great. But I think once the Phillies get healthy, I agree with Gene. I think, you know, once summer comes around and gets warm, you get Bryce back. I think they're going to go on a tear. So, you know, I really don't have too much, you know, to add on top of that.
So my division winners slightly different. Obviously, we got the same six. LA, I think, is going to be. I like their consistency with it. I think to win that division, you're gonna have to win probably 105 games next year. Not saying San Diego's not capable of doing that, but I know LA has been, and so I trust them a little bit more to squeak out that division. I 100% agree, though. That NL East is definitely the best division. That's gonna be a fun division to watch to see how everything plays out. I was actually surprised that you guys didn't have the Phillies winning the division based off of what we saw from them last year. Obviously, you know, you guys already mentioned Rhys Hoskins is hurt to start the year. Bryce Harper starting off hurt as well. I'm assuming that's kind of what played into that to have the Phillies in the wild card.
I'll tell you. I can tell you.
What's
the Braves have the better roster than the Phillies do, but the Phillies in a 7-game series to be able to win a game, they have bigger dogs. I think that over the long haul, the Braves are just better top to bottom than the Phillies are. Okay. But in a series, I would go to war with Schwarber, Harper, Trey Turner in a 7-game series. I just think that's the difference. I think that Atlanta is built for the regular season. And that sounds kind of funky because they're just winning the World Series a couple years ago. But I think that their team as a whole is built to be a very, very good regular season juggernaut.
Fair enough. I was just going to say, because of the addition of Trey Turner, I was surprised that there wasn't even like more thought into it. But obviously, reasoning definitely makes sense there. The Mets are a team that I have winning that NL East, and I know you guys think they're going to be the last spot. I really think the Mets are going to make a move at the deadline. One of those crazy moves. Obviously, they tried to sign Correa, didn't work out for him. I think the Mets might be in the thick of it once the Shohei Ohtani sweepstakes starts. I really think the Mets are going to make a crazy move before that deadline passes, and that's what's going to propel them to be in the top team in the NL East. My 3 wildcard teams: Braves, Padres, Phillies. I think this year is. I'm not going to say anybody could come out of the NL, but because obviously last year the Phillies did it from the wild card. But I love all these teams, man. It's going to be fun to see. And San Diego, once Tatis gets back, I wonder how long it's going to take him to get acclimated with his suspension being as long as it was. San Diego is going to be a tough team to play. Talent-wise, I agree, Gene. I do think they are the most talented team in the NL. But I think LA will put it together more in the regular season to take care of the division.
Okay. I'm not against any of your 6 teams. What order you have them in. We all have projections, and that's where we're projecting them. So it is what it is. I don't disagree with anything that you're saying. I think the Mets pitching staff is incredible, top to bottom. You're talking about a pitching staff that's going to have Max Scherzer, Justin Verlander, Carlos Carrasco, and that's not. And I think that I'm missing somebody big. David Peterson's on that staff. He's very good. And Cody Senga is going to be there.
I mean, they do have to figure out what they're going to do with that their closer.
They have $20 million insurance policy. They can go out and sign anybody they want to sign with that $20 million insurance policy.
No, 100%. But you're losing one of the best in the game. I mean, you still got to figure that out. I 100% expect them to. Their owner has shown that he's not afraid to spend money, and they do have that money to go get one. But that is the one question mark with them.
Yeah, Robertson's penciled in as their closer now. He cannot be their closer come for the playoff push. He's just not that guy. But as a whole, I think the Mets will be fine. But I have them as the 6th best team in the NL. Well, 6th seed. I think they'll have a better record than the NL Central winner. This is what Cottrell was referring to earlier. I didn't have Alex Manoah on my top 10 pitchers list. And I'm going to go first here. And I haven't won the AL Cy Young. I've watched this kid pitch in spring training, and I've read everything I can read on him, and I think the Blue Jays season that they're going to have as a whole, it goes into this. I have him as my AL Cy Young winner. I think the odds, I'd like to look at odds, and I like to be able to get a value. And at 15-1 odds, Alex Manoah is my guy. Last year, I was on top of, McClanahan from Tampa Bay and Dylan Cease from Chicago. They had great odds. My projections for this award are solely based off my betting. And I at plus 550, the odds Jacob deGrom stays healthy. I just can't. So I got Manoah as my AL Cy
Young. The Manoah thing, I mean, it's kind of hard to explain, but I guess I'll let Cottrell bring it up when he gets to it. But I'm going with deGrom. I think he stays healthy enough. He's going to pitch in warm weather all year. I watched his last spring training start. He looks like Jacob deGrom. He went fly ball, ground out. Kid hit a slider off the top of the fence on him. Then he struck out the next 7 guys he faced. Got the last guy to ground out and exited the game. He is, said it before, when he's healthy and he has his stuff, he's the best pitcher in baseball. Health has always been the biggest thing with him. I think the weather helps him a little bit. I think Texas is going to be cautious with him in the beginning. I don't think they're going to try to stretch him out too often. Manoah is a great pick. That wouldn't surprise me at all. And Gene mentioned 2 of the other guys, and Dylan Cease and McClanahan that I think will be there at the end as well. But I will say Manoah was a guy that I said to watch out for last year when they got him. It was kind of a little bit of an under the radar type move. He's going to anchor that staff this year between him, Gossman, and Jose Barrios, who again I think is a big key to what Toronto's going to do this year. But I'm going to go with deGrom. I think he has one more just crazy, unbelievable type year left in him.
So I'm also going with Alek Manoah. I think that a lot of his success last year was obviously, I'm not going to say like it wasn't a fluke or anything like that, but I think a lot of his success come winning the award this upcoming year is going to be based on the Toronto Blue Jays having as great of a season as they do. 2.2 ERA last year, finished 3rd in the AL Cy Young with 16 wins. With Jacob deGrom, who was obviously a guy who would have been up in conversation for me, I know I had him at high up on my list. I think I had him 2 or 1 when we did our pitchers list. But I just, as much as I want to project that he's going to be healthy, I just don't know for sure. And so I want to go out on the branch, but I don't want to go all the way. So I think Alek Manoah is a safe pick. And he puts up the same numbers as last year. Blue Jays finished with the number one seed going into the playoffs. I think it's going to be hard not to vote for him.
Let's move on. NL Cy Young. Oh, this is a wrap. My favorite pitcher in baseball, Sandy Alcantara. The guy is next world. I across the board. He's going to pitch 8 innings, 9 innings. He's got fantastic stuff. Most overpowering pitcher in baseball. He's the best. He's the best, and he's in the prime of his career. So It looks like we all have Sandy Alcantara, so I'll pass the buck to Shally to speak about my favorite pitcher.
Sandy Alcantara, I think, is one of those guys that I put on the short list that I've mentioned before, that any given day you turn on the TV and watch him, he is capable of throwing a no-hitter.
Yep.
And that is a very short list. You know, he has a fastball that is upper 90s that moves late. He has a changeup that drops off the table, and he has a curve and a slider that'll make you look foolish. I'm going to disagree with Gene. I don't think he's even in his goddamn prime yet, and I think that's the scary part. I'll compare him to a guy we just talked about. He is the next closest thing to a Jacob deGrom that's in the major leagues right now. In that he has devastating off speed and breaking stuff, and he can also just sit there and throw 3 fastballs by you if he wants to. He's powerful. He's precise. He is anything you would ever want in a pitcher ever. And he was my easy pick for repeat NL Cy Young this year.
So the crazy thing about it is that there's only been 6 people to win the Cy Young in consecutive years, and I really think that what he did last year, obviously Gene was on top of him last year. We did our preview show. Gene was all over it. I don't know how you could pick anyone else in this race. I really don't. Sandy, based off everything that he did last year, and he was a guy that really, there was games that he lost where, it was the Jacob deGrom effect. It was 2-1 games, or he would pitch all 9 innings and still not get a win. So I think his numbers are going to be absolutely incredible, and I think he's going to be number 7 in a history of a short list of guys to win the Cy Young back-to-back years.
I do have a dark horse that I almost put on this list just because I didn't want to go Alcantara back-to-back years. Spencer Strider is going to be second, in my opinion. That kid is got filthy stuff. Phillies lit him up. He came back a little too early last year, but his stuff is next level. And the Atlanta Braves are going to have him for the next 5 years, and he is incredible. So Spencer Strider would be my number 2. A little bit of a dark horse at 10-1. I told you I was going to do this when we did the first baseman's list. I think he reverts back to his MVP form, his near Triple Crown form, and Vlad Guerrero Jr. is the staple of that Toronto Blue Jays. So I got if you just noticed, I have the Cy Young and I have the MVP in the American League going to the Toronto Blue Jays. Vlad Guerrero Jr. in the middle of that lineup. I think he's, once again, heading in the middle of his prime, and he's just all world. Guy's not the best defensive first baseman, but he's not terrible, and he rakes, man. He's going to bat 315, 320, hit 45 home runs. I think that Vlad Guerrero Jr. wins MVP in American League.
I'm going to go with Shohei. I don't think it's just out of default. I'm not saying that, either guy that you guys have picked or, a small group of other have it be, Aaron Judge, Mike Trout, whoever. I think it's going to be very hard if Shohei stays healthy all year. The double dip effect, is what I call it. It's going to take something very special, like you saw last year with Aaron Judge, to beat Ohtani. For Ohtani standards, he had a little bit of a down year hitting, but his pitching was better than it was the previous year. You're going to take something of an all-world type year, like breaking records, stuff like that, which, again, I think Vlad Guerrero is capable of doing, and, we know what Jose Ramirez can do. We saw Judge last year. Trout hit 40 home runs in 112 games. I think one of those guys is going to stay healthy the whole year and just put up something, for lack of a better terms, that we've never seen before. Because if not, what you're getting with Ohtani. You're going to get 35 plus home runs, probably close to 100 RBIs, and he's probably going to win 15 to 18 games. You got the whole Babe Ruth thing going on. He's just too good on doing both things between pitching and hitting. And I think if he stays consistent this year, it's too hard to beat him. He just has something. He has something going that the other guys, nobody's winning an MVP off their defense. You know what I mean, for lack of a better term. So these guys have to put up just insane numbers hitting to beat them out with the voters. I would like somebody else to win it, but I think Shohei's going to.
I just want to make a comment real quick. And the reason Shohei is not my MVP, Shohei is the best player in baseball. The reason Shohei is not my MVP is because in 4 major league seasons, he's been healthy through 2 of them. Mm-hmm. Having a full World Baseball Classic behind him and being like literally the best player on Japan's team, being used in every different scenario to win the World Baseball Classic. I just see a long stint on the DL this year. Maybe it's just out of safety. Maybe it's, like his arm soreness but I just think that Shohei Ohtani takes a little bit of a step back because he doesn't get enough games. I think I'll end up playing 112, and I don't think that'll be enough.
I see that. The only reason why I didn't go with Shohei was I think he gets traded this upcoming year, and I don't think he's in the AL all season. And with that said, I mean, obviously Vlad Guerrero he's finished runner-up before. Aaron Judge just had an incredible year, and I'm going with J-Ram. Call me Homer all you want to. He's a guy he's finished second before. Last year finished 4th. I mean, I think this upcoming year he's gonna bat 300. I just see it. Last year batted 280. I think this year you'll see a big spike in that number. And again, I think he replicates his RBI put out from last year. I think he's high 115, 120. I see him in that range again, and I think he hits 30 plus home runs. I think that will be enough on that Guardians team to get you to bring home an MVP award. So that's why I'm rolling with J-Ram. Bringing MVP back home.
I love it. Throw $25 on it, 15-1.
I mean, I think he's very capable of having that season. I just don't think it's enough. I mean, I think if Shohei stays healthy, I mean, Aaron Judge had to hit 62 home runs last year and bat 330. He still almost lost. I just don't think 330 and 125, 30 RBIs is going to be enough. But I mean, we'll see. I mean, it's a long season. That's the beauty of it.
Start us off on this one, Cottrell.
All right, so I'm rolling with Freddie Freeman here. Last year batted 325. I think this upcoming year he's going to be right around there again. I think he is very strong candidate to win the batting title this upcoming year. Probably be in the mix of winning the Silver Slugger Award. I think Freddie Freeman is going to be he's going to be the best part of a Dodgers team who I think is going to capture the 1 seed. You saw it, 20 minutes ago. We were going over our division winners. I think LA wins their division. I think they finished with the number 1 seed. So I think Freddie Freeman putting up those types of crazy numbers. He bats 335 with 25 home runs, takes home a Silver Slugger. I think he's going to be up there for MVP awards. So I got him taking it home.
For me, I'm going to go with Juan Soto. I've mentioned it on this show, and I've mentioned it numerous other times. I think when a guy first goes to a city, Juan Soto moved across the country, for lack of a better term. I think it takes a full, half season, full season to get settled in. He played well in the World Baseball Classic. He got a little precautionary thing at the end, but he's gonna be ready to go for opening day tomorrow. I mean, listen, it's for me, he's the best pure hitter in baseball. He's going to play right field. He's going to be in a stacked lineup. He's going to hit number 2. He's going to have Bogarts and Manny Machado behind him, with Jake Cronenworth behind him. His numbers, I think he has potential to put up an all-time type year. I think 100 plus runs, probably 120 RBIs, and he's going to probably hit 330. He's going to be playing in great weather. That's another thing that's going to benefit him. He's not going to be playing any cold weather games for the first 2 months like he was in Washington. Kid's a stud, man. I mean, I love watching him play baseball. he is a pleasure to watch, and he is well on his way to being, a Hall of Famer. So I think Juan Soto has a little bit of bounce back year this year, but I think he takes home the MVP.
I couldn't agree with you more, Shelly. I almost picked Juan Soto to win MVP for me. I went to the well too many times with him. I think that last year, the one thing that really let me down with Juan Soto was how he quit on his team. I know the Washington Nationals were a terrible team. I just don't think that's the way you handle yourself with an organization. I don't think the Nationals did a great job handling that either by not flying him to the All-Star game and making him get his own way everywhere. That was spiteful. I felt like, I don't know. Part of me believes that if LA is going to contend for that division, that Mookie Betts is going to move right back in that leadoff role and hit 165, 175 hits this year. I think that he'll have to be the catalyst of that lineup for that LA Dodgers team. And I think that Mookie Betts, the best player on one of the best teams in baseball. And I think that being in that position and being where he's at, I think Mookie will get the nod over Juan Soto. But those are my top two candidates. I think Trey Turner is the other one. I look at guys that the shift is really going to help. I also look at guys that, the new rules are really going to affect. Like Mookie Betts is going to steal bases. Trey Turner is going to steal a ton of bases this year, especially with the pitch clock, being able to time everything that's coming through. I think that this could be an all-world season. I think your top three candidates for MVP are Mookie Betts, Trey Turner, and Juan Soto.
Trey's my dark horse as well, and again, I think if he puts up huge numbers, especially now with Reese being gone, and until Bryce gets back and is really kind of full speed, if he pretty much holds the Phillies afloat and puts up crazy numbers, he's going to get a lot of push from voters and writers. It's supposed to be the most valuable. You provide that type of value and put a team on your back while its biggest star isn't on the team. That's going to go a long way. So again, Trey Turner. If I had to pick Juan Soto, I would have picked Trey Turner. I don't want to be a homer, but Cottrell always takes care of that for us.
I don't know why you guys act like any chance Bill gets, he doesn't put his Phillies guys or anywhere near the top. I don't know why we're acting like this is just some foreign thing.
Who's not putting near the top
more with you?
Bro, Bill picked Joel to win MVP, Tyrese Maxey to win Sixth Man of the Year, and the Sixers to win the NBA Finals. What are we talking about here?
You picked the Lakers, bro. You're gonna argue about my NBA. You're gonna argue about my NBA picks. You picked the Lakers.
I did.
Make the play-in.
I did pick the Lakers, and then what I do the week after, I tried to walk it right on back.
Yeah, you abandoned ship faster than the people on Titanic, brother.
Actually, I don't think they abandoned quick enough, if I'm being honest with you. But Jesus, dark humor. Let me get off that one.
Humor. Sorry, Jack.
Get off my board. I'm just kidding.
Cold-hearted bitch.
So, only thing that we got to go over, I didn't do a graphic for our World Series predictions.
Okay. Well, you want to start, Control?
Yeah, I'll start. So for me, out of the NL, I have the San Diego Padres. I mean, I know I didn't have one in the division. I just think talent-wise, once the playoffs rolls around, you got to figure out a way to contain Machado and Tatis, Cronenworth, and Bogarts, all those guys. It's just going to be tough out, especially with who they have on their pitching staff as well. Out of the AL side, I'm rolling with the Astros. I think the Astros make it back. It pains me to do it. Obviously, lost Verlander, but the playoffs comes around, they find ways to win. I think they make it back to the World Series, but I have them losing. I think the Padres they win it all this year, and you see Juan Soto. I think that's going to be the moment that he gets his MVP. He'll have World Series MVP.
Okay, so I have the you know what, Bill? I want you to tell me who my World Series is based off all my things that I've done all night. I know it already. I know you know it already.
I mean, you definitely have Toronto in the AL. I mean, I think you probably have the same thing I do. I would assume you have San Diego.
I have the Padres over the Blue Jays. The Padres
Same.
over the Blue Jays are my prediction to win the World Series this year. If we all three of us pick the Padres, that's great. I hope that's what you have, because if that's the case, that means the Phillies have a much better shot, and we're never all going to get the World Series team right.
Nope. Bet on every other team we talked about tonight besides the Padres. I would say though, I have San Diego over Toronto. I think it's an incredible World Series. I think the pitching matchups will be great. And again, you're talking about just two absolutely electric powerhouse lineups. I think it has the chance to just to be fireworks in every single game. To be honest, I think it'll be great for San Diego. For them to play some night games in prime time. And then obviously Toronto. I think we've seen their fans in the past for playoff games. They show up and the old Sky Dome gets mighty loud when it's full. So, I think that would be a great World Series. As a fan, I would love it. I'd be a little pissed if the Phillies aren't in it because I think we're close. But it's getting back there 2 years in a row is not easy, let alone winning it. So,
Kyle's got the Astros versus the Braves. I don't hate that either.
No, I just won't watch it because both teams can kiss my ass. So. I'm tired of Houston, and whatever. I've been over Atlanta since about 1992. So, tomahawk chop bullshit. I'm tired of that too. So, listen, I won't be surprised if that is. I mean, it's two great teams. I mean, Houston's experience and their talent. It's they've been there, done that. Sometimes legal, sometimes cheating, but. They know how to win. They know how to win late in the year when it matters. Added Jose Abreu, lost Verlander. We saw Framber, what he is, and he's just filth personified. So we'll see what happens.
Well, let's move on to our newest portion of the show. Go back to our secondary. NFL draft is around the corner. We're going to do 2 positions per week after this week. So we're going to do secondary this week. Next week's going to be linebackers and defensive linemen. And then after that, we'll do skill positions, running back, wide receiver, and then O-line, quarterback. So we'll do it right up into the draft. But we're going to go through our top 5 positions at secondary. We're going to start with Bill, then go to Cottrell, and then me. So this is Bill's top 5. He did a tie. No ties. There's no tying in baseball.
You say baseball.
You're right. I'm just kidding.
Don't also forget next week, the coveted, always highly controversial outfield list will be next week. So
outfield list. Dude, we got a loaded show next week. UFC.
Masters.
A tradition unlike any other.
Attaboy. Gene's not a casual golf fan anymore. I am. You follow it and more than you lead on. You just like to play the tough casual fan guy.
As long as I don't become a soccer fan, we're good.
You got in the World Cup, don't lie.
I was into it a little bit. All right, so this is Chally's top 5 at 5.
All right, the radio DJ stuff. Here we go. Number 1 for me, I have Devin Witherspoon, Illinois. I think he's the best corner in the draft. I think he's physical. He's fast. He's a very smart player. Again, I don't want to say I'm biased, but I watched him a little bit, and then I watched him when we played him this year. He absolutely stood out in more ways than you could. He's a very physical corner, which I love personally. He loves to play against the run. He gave our guys crap and problems all day. It just seemed every big stop they got, he was involved in. Performed well at the combine. I think he's the best all-around corner in the draft. I don't want to say the shortest thing because I think Joey Porter Jr. is as well, but I think he's a little bit more physical. I think he's a little bit of a better athlete than Joey Porter Jr., so I have him number 1. Joey Porter Jr., we've talked about him numerous times in the show. Penn State, he played great the last 2 years. Didn't get thrown out as much this year. I think if he's a little bit of a better athlete, I think he could probably be the first corner off the board. I also think he's a guy that can go in and play in the NFL right away. Same thing with Witherspoon. Don't have a bad thing to say about him. I think he had an absolute incredible 2 years at Penn State. And I think he gets drafted in the first round. Like I said, I think he starts day one next year. Christian Gonzalez, number 3, I think I think he has all the tools to be great. He's not great against the run. If he lacked anything, a lot of people have him number 2 on the list ahead of Porter. I have him number 3. I think he's just not, I don't want to use the word physical, but he's just not physical enough for me. Like I said, he doesn't not a kid that likes to bang, doesn't support the run as well as I think the other 2 do. That's the only reason I have him number 3. Physically gifted though, great athlete. He'll start somewhere as well. I think he's gonna probably go late first round, maybe mid to late first round. And he'll step in for somebody and start. So my top 3 secondary guys, we always talk about like what you value. I value obviously somebody that could step in and be a number 1 corner over a safety. So that's the only reason those 3 guys are top for me. 4 and 5, I have the 2 safeties from Alabama, Brian Branch, Jordan Battle. They are both all around good safeties. They're high floor safeties. They're both going to start somewhere. They're both going to start next year.
Oh my God, give me Brian Branch on the Eagles. That's what I want. It's like my dream situation if he falls to 31. I don't think he'll be there.
I don't think he will either.
How he could trade up and now be a starting safety for the next 5-10 years. Give me Brian Branch, man. I want him so bad. I
agree. I was going to mention that. I think he's on every Eagles fan that is really into drafting and prospects and stuff. If you know the safety position and you've watched any kind of his tape, he is on your wish list. Again, I agree with Gene. I don't think he's there at 31 because I think he has the ability to kind of do what Kyle Hamilton last year. I think he starts right away. Great against the pass, very athletic, very nimble, and he loves supporting the run. He's everything you want in a safety. So he's number 4 for me. I have Jordan Battle, who to some people is the bigger name, the more familiar name out of the 2, but I think Brian Branch is the better safety. Tie for 5 for me. I have Jordan Battle and Sidney Brown. Both guys that are good in coverage. They're not going to hurt you. Again, they're both high floor guys, but I think they both start next year. Probably just not the same instant impact that you would get with Brian Branch. But I think they're both plug and play, instant starters in the NFL. That's why I had them tied for 5th. I wanted to talk about both of them, but those are the top 6 guys for me anyway in this upcoming draft.
Okay, Control. Let's get into yours.
All right, so my top 5. You notice a lot of familiar faces from my list to Bill's list. My number 1, Devin Witherspoon. Devin Witherspoon is the best corner in this draft. I shouldn't say he's the best corner in this draft. I think he's the most ready to play day one. I think all these guys will be able to play for you day one, but I think he's the most pro ready right now. Devin Witherspoon, great in coverage, man-to-man coverage. He's a man corner. He's gonna be physical, and he's gonna, he may not be necessarily great in run support, but he's gonna be physical enough with receivers, and he's great at man coverage. That's exactly what I want from a number 1 corner. I think he didn't run at all at the combine. People had questions about what he's going to actually look like as an athlete numbers wise. Don't worry about it. Watch his film. He's great. He's great in coverage. Really came out of nowhere this year. I feel like last year everybody was expecting Joey Porter Jr. to be the number 1 corner in this class, and Devin Witherspoon really just came and shut down everything on an Illinois team that outperformed their expectations. My number 2 is Joey Porter Jr. I absolutely love Joey Porter Jr. here. I do wish that he would have ran a little bit better. The 4.5 at the combine, that I felt like he looked faster on tape, but I'm okay with that. He's very physical as well. The one thing about Joey Porter though is that he can get a little too aggressive. So I don't want to say he's undisciplined because that's not the word, but he can get really handsy and cost you some big time penalty yards from tugging when he doesn't need to when he's already in position. That's the only thing that really scares me about Joey Porter Jr., but I think that can get coached out of him. Like, I think he'll be perfectly fine if you get the right DB coach with him to just trust his technique just a little bit more. My number 3 is Christian Gonzalez. Christian Gonzalez is a guy who's he's been a starter. He's been a starter for the past 3 seasons. Before he was at Oregon, he was at Colorado. He went to Oregon to follow his DB coach. And this is a guy who shot up draft boards after him having the combine performance that he did. I think Christian Gonzalez has great size, and obviously he's a freak athlete. You're going to have to coach him up a little bit. He's not one of those guys that's like Devin Witherspoon where you can just put him in right away and he's going to shadow a number one caliber receiver. You are going to have to coach him to get that out of him, but all of the intangibles are there with the size, the speed, and just the ability to play. So I love Christian Gonzalez as well. My number 4 is Brian Branch. Brian Branch is the best safety in this class, and I don't think it's particularly close. If you watch his tape, you'll see everything you need to know. Brian Branch is physical and great in pass game as well. Obviously, he had a lot of benefits from having Will Anderson, in front of him to get after the quarterback, to get the ball out a little bit faster. Brian Branch is a hell of a player. And I think it's kind of I hate to say it to you guys, but I think it's a pipe dream to think that he's going to be there at 31. I think if you really want him, you're going to move up. But I think Brian Branch is a caliber player that you can feel comfortable moving up and saying, hey, yeah, we're going to, lose out on some draft stock and some draft capital, but he's going to be our safety for at least the next 5 years. And, you're going to be okay.
You can also reach and take him at 10.
You could, yes, but I don't think you necessarily need to do that, though. I think you could.
If he's projected in the 18 to 24 range, you have to give back end capital, or if you have to reach.
Yeah, so those would be your two options. I think I would feel comfortable trading up from 31 to get to like 20 or so, seeing who's there in that range. But I absolutely love Brian Branch. And then my number 5 is Cam Smith. Cam Smith was a guy who I really didn't get on until the back half of last season. That South Carolina secondary, the back half of the season, once Spencer Rattler started, pulling off those games, if you actually watch South Carolina and watch their teams play, their secondary was absolutely incredible. South Carolina's defense, they trusted Cam Smith, and their other corner's name escapes me at the moment, but they trusted those guys pretty much in one-on-one scenarios all the time, and they were physical. And that it's not like they were, physical in the AC, things like that. They were going up against, Tennessee's Jalen Hyatt and Brew McCoy. They were going up against these top caliber receivers and holding their own. I love Cam Smith's physicality, and he's a corner that's going to talk to you as well. So you have that confidence with you. I absolutely love it. I think Cam Smith's going to be a great corner in this upcoming class. I didn't put it on here. My honorable mention, Keely Ringo, guy, we've talked about on the show numerous times. Gene's been high on him before. I think that he's getting a bad rap now because of his performance in the college football playoff game. He ran a 4.3. He has the size. He has the skills. He has to go to a system where you're going to work with him. But that is okay. You don't need a player coming into the NFL being exactly and 100% ready to play. You work with them. That's why they pay you a bunch of money. Get them together. I think Keely Ringo will be perfectly fine in the NFL if he goes to the right system.
I completely agree with you. You can cut into mine. I completely agree with you. My list is a little different, and I'm going to go 5-1 if you guys don't mind. I want to start with Christian Gonzalez, who I have number 5. I'm sure that's a shock to both of you guys. You guys both have him at 3, and that's okay. I struggled with this number 5 spot because Keely Ringo I had on this list. Christian Gonzalez is just an athletic freak. What stands out to me on tape is in college, his anticipation is just really bad. And he's constantly using his athleticism to catch up to plays where you can't do that in the next level. Guy ran a 4.3 840. He has all the ability. Like when I look at him, I see a Dory Jackson, just like the player I see when I watch him play. The problem is he's going to need a year or two to catch up to the NFL teams because his elite athleticism will not carry him versus NFL wide receivers. You just can't fall behind on those slant plays, and he's slow at reacting. It's almost like his brain's just a little bit below his body. But with the right coaching staff and the right film work, he could be the best cornerback in this entire class. That's how athletic he is. I don't think it'll be in the next 2 years. I think he's definitely a project, and I think he goes in the situation. Situation matters for him. All right, so Cam Smith, let's talk about him for a minute. He flew up my board when I watched him follow around Jalen Hyatt versus Tennessee. Hyatt had unbelievable games all year. Versus South Carolina, he had 6 catches for 65 yards and 0 touchdowns. That's a game in which they were throwing the ball the entire game because they were trying to catch up to South Carolina. Cam Smith followed him around and was on him like white on rice. I'm like, this kid's incredible watching him play. And I got to watch him coming down the stretch. I got to watch a couple of it. I got to watch his bowl game. But Cam Smith is just, I think he's going to be elite, and I think he'll be one of the elite corners in this draft. You guys already know my love affair for Brian Branch. I think he's the best safety in the class by far. I want him to be a Philadelphia Eagle. There's a huge need for us. He's a great player to fit it. You have a Devontae Smith, Jalen Hurts, Landon Dickerson, Alabama alum on the roster. I could see. I would not be upset if the Eagles took him at 10. I wouldn't be upset if they fell back to 15, picked up some more draft capital, and took him at 15. If he's our first player off the board and that's your starting safety for the next 5 years, I'm okay with it. Give me Brian Branch at number 3. 2 and 1 was my biggest. Guys, listen, you guys know how big I am on Joey Porter Jr. I wanted to have Joey Porter Jr. 1 on this list. I sat down and watched about an hour worth of Devin Witherspoon film. I didn't get a chance to watch too many Illini games. I don't really care about Illinois football. If I'm being honest with you. There's better games every single week. I watched about an hour of this kid, and it's almost like I see Richard Sherman all over again. Joey Porter Jr. is incredible. He reminds me of an Al Harris at his prime type corner. I know that's underselling him, but the point being is the guy is very physical, in your face, athletic. And he's listen, his dad's Joey Porter. Like, he's going to be a pro's pro. These two are the top 2 corners in the class. I just think Devin Witherspoon has just a next level to him, a Sauce Gardner to him. And I think Devin Witherspoon has the ability to be the best corner in this class by a lot. That's my secondary picks. We're going to have fun with this each week. We got to time it out. We'll talk about it after the show. But we got to time it out to where we get this all done before the draft. If we do 2 next week, that's fine. But we also have the UFC. But we'll talk about that in our post show. I wouldn't mind Branch at number 14 to my Patriots. That's what Kyle said. Yeah, I mean, you guys, Devin McCourty just retired from you guys. It's a great fit to replace him.
I think they go offense, but yeah.
Yeah, I agree with you. But my point being is that guy is a stud at safety, and I think that he's going to make whatever NFL team he's on better. Let's get into You Gotta Be Kidding Me. Cottrell?
So, funny enough, you said that you have like 1 million this week. I don't have one that particularly stands out to me. There's a couple that's been kind of eating at me a little bit. UFC and their scoring has been making me mad lately. Macy Barber won a fraudulent decision this past weekend. It was a fight night card. I know a lot of you guys probably didn't watch it. But that's one. The UFC, they've just been so inconsistent with their scoring when it comes down to decisions. How somebody could score that particular fight, if you watch it, 30-27, I think that's absolutely insane to me. It's not. I'm not going to say it borderline feels like there's something going on behind the scenes. It's giving a lot of the same feel as boxing used to give.
What about Bradley Beal? There's so many of them, bro.
Bradley Beal could be. Because I don't care about Washington. I completely forgot about Bradley Beal.
I don't want to get away with one Shallys, but my point being is there's so many this week. I'm using, guys, I already sent you guys what I'm using, but there's so many this week. The Bradley Beal situation is an absolute joke. Beal said a fan spat at him over a lost bet, so he pulled a gun. Are you serious? Like, what are we doing? Oh.
But yeah, I guess for me this week, UFC and their inconsistent scoring, I really hope they clean it up before. They won't, but I hope they do clean it up before next week's big card. Because if one of those two fights goes down to decision and something crazy happens, it's just going to shake up everything. So this week for me, the UFC.
Come on, you gotta be kidding me.
I don't really have one. I have the one that I wanted to use, but I have to be fair. Gene claimed it first.
Yeah, do it. I'll do Ben Simmons.
All right.
I'm ready.
I already have mine for next week, but I saved it for next week for a reason. So I'll leave that at be. But all right, I mean, I'll use the JT Realmuto thing, and I'll just easily say this is the most despicable, crazy overreaction, and just simply put, the worst ejection maybe in the history of baseball. If you haven't seen the clip, JT reached back for a ball, and the umpire didn't put it in his glove right away, so he put his glove down. Umpire threw the ball, thought JT was showing him up for some odd reason. Mind you, JT Realmuto has never been ejected from a baseball game ever in his career, ever. Nobody's ever said he argues too much. Like JT Realmuto plays the game as a gentleman. Like, there is no back history here, nothing. Umpire in the spring training game thinks JT's showing him up, so he throws him out of the game. Now, mind you, the pitch before this, the Phillies pitcher wanted a new ball. JT put his hand back to get another ball in his glove, and the umpire threw the ball directly out to the pitcher. So when he didn't get the ball right away, that's what he thought he was doing again. I will always be a baseball purist. If you've ever listened to the show, when we talk about baseball, everybody knows that. I will tell you, the way these umps continue to handle themselves, make themselves look like clowns and every other thing, you are making the case for robot umps better and better by the day. It's classless. It's Bush League. It's stupid. It's spring training, man. Nobody is there to see you. Nobody is there to see you. Nobody cares who the umpire is. For you to insert yourself into the game in that way and throw a guy out it's just classless as a joke. I haven't heard one single person on any show. They interviewed a couple ex-umpires. They said it was ridiculous. Nobody is standing up for this guy.
Minor league umpires. Now he's lost everything. Yeah. The guy's lost everything.
Yeah, he's that one thing will preclude him from ever getting to the major league. So I have to hate to say it, but you deserve it. So for me this week.
Come on, you gotta be kidding me.
Okay, so I'm gonna start my "you gotta be kidding me" with something. So I started with the Charmin Ultra Soft commercial because I'm getting the jersey. I'm buying it today, right after the show. I'm buying my Ben Simmons Charmin jersey because the man is ultra soft. The Nets are shutting down Ben Simmons. He's injured again. It's his back. They found something again, even though there's been nothing on any x-ray from any doctor for every single time. He's just soft. The guy is a plain soft NBA player. Retire, quit. You're garbage. Go away. I will hate this man for the rest of my existence. Ben Simmons, you absolute fraud, you joke, trying to steal money from NBA teams, not wanting to work for it, and then quitting on every franchise you're a part of. So this week, I will take my shots again at Ben Simmons.
Come on, you gotta be kidding me.
He is Charmin Ultra Soft. Anybody want to defend him still?
The only pushback I'll give you is I think you need to work on your rhythm a little bit. Those claps were a little offbeat there.
That's fair. I just want to know if anybody wants to still defend him. I've been telling you guys for a year, this man is ultra soft. He is Charmin soft. 2 years I've been telling you. And it's all, it's the situation. It's Doc. It's Joel. It's the city. It's everything else but Ben Simmons. Was in another situation with another team, and he's shut down again. He's Charmin Ultra Soft. I think Ben Simmons, that's perfect. Kyle put it out there perfectly. Go play for Taiwan. Go play in the Chinese league. Go play somewhere else. But the NBA is not for you, brother. and your Charmin Ultra Soft, and I'll just finish there. Any final thoughts, gentlemen? And I use that word loosely.
I mean, opening day tomorrow, favorite day of the year. Obviously, first weekend of college football special. I love March Madness, but opening day will always just hold a special place for me. Great weekend of baseball coming up. We got the NCAA finals. We're on the verge of NBA playoffs, NHL playoffs. We have the Masters next weekend. This is like one of my favorite weeks of the year. One of my favorite weeks of the year.
I'm with it. Let's have a great finish to this week. Let's head into next week with another huge episode. Let's have a great finish to March. We are like 68 downloads away from breaking the record again. Guys, if you can download us on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, iHeartRadio, Stitcher, wherever you get your podcast, Wire2Wire Sports Podcast is just breaking records. Over 1,000 downloads in the short month of February. We're over 1,000 again in March. Our record's 1162 in a single month. We're about 70 away from it. Normally, we're getting 70 to 100 per episode. So hopefully we can get that overnight. We'll upload tonight. So we have tomorrow and Friday. Download us on Spotify. Push us. Give us more to push for going forward. If we get to 1,200, it's a new goal that we can reach and achieve. But 1,150 downloads in a month on top of our live views, on top of our YouTube views is successful. And we are constantly growing, and we appreciate your listening to us each week. So with that being said, Cottrell, any final thoughts?
Nothing from me.
This is episode 129, Wire2Wire, the hot corner. I'm hot. It's hot where I'm at. We are signing out.